My sister's baby shower. My seat was right in front of the toilet. On the table, there was an air freshener and a sign that read, "Warning, strong odor." My family laughed. "It's a special seat just for you." As luxurious food was served, the waiter handed me a $22,000 bill. I took a sip of my drink and smiled. They had no idea what was coming. Caroline Bradley was gazing at the New York skyline through the window of her office on the 38th floor of a Manhattan high-rise. On her desk were neatly arranged documents and thick files separated by color-coded tabs, telling of her meticulous nature. "Here are the materials for your appointment with the Hopkins couple," said her secretary Jennifer, knocking on the door and entering with a new file. Caroline turned with a smile and said, "Thank you, Jennifer," as she took the materials. Her voice was soft, and kindness dwelled in her eyes. As a senior financial advisor at Wells Fargo, Caroline managed the assets of many wealthy clients, earning their trust through her outstanding analytical skills and integrity. She had been promoted to become the youngest senior manager in her division, and was highly respected by her colleagues. However, her success at work did nothing to resolve the complex tensions in her family relationships. Rather, it seemed that her success was widening the distance within her family even further. Caroline's smartphone vibrated, and the name Amanda appeared on the screen. She hesitated for a moment before answering the call. From the other end of the phone came the cheerful voice of Caroline's sister Amanda. "I'm so glad you answered. I need a little help. The venue for next week's baby shower, the final payment is due today. Could you cover it with your card?" Caroline closed her eyes and took a deep breath. This wasn't the first time. Her sister Amanda worked as a weather forecaster at a local TV station and was popular with viewers for her beauty and charming personality. However, her spending habits were notorious within the family. "Amanda, I just helped with your credit card payment last month. How much do you need now?" "Only $3,000, Amanda said lightly. "I'll definitely pay you back next month. Please? This is my first baby. I want to make it a special day." Caroline sighed. She was family-oriented and loved her only sister dearly. But financial support for Amanda had changed from emergencies to regular occurrences over the past few years. "All right. But this is the last time, Amanda. Really, let's talk properly this weekend." "Awesome. I love you, Caro." Amanda's voice was filled with joy. "I'll let Mom know too. She'll be thrilled." Caroline ended the call and gazed out the window again. The face of her mother Judith came to mind. A woman in her 60s with beauty similar to Amanda's, her attitude toward her two daughters had always been noticeably different. "Caroline, you're the older sister, so of course you should help Amanda." This was something Caroline had heard countless times since childhood. In her mother's eyes, Amanda was the special child, and Caroline was the responsible child. That role assignment hadn't changed, even now that they were adults. Caroline picked up her cell phone and opened her banking app. Her savings account had accumulated a considerable amount as a result of efficient asset management and planned living. And in the account specifically designated for family emergencies, many withdrawal records already remained. Thinking back, the Christmas party, her father Thomas's 60th birthday celebration, her mother's birthday party, her sister's engagement party, and the wedding. Caroline had been the main contributor to all of them, always accompanied by the phrase, "because you're the big sister." Her father Thomas was a mild-mannered retired teacher who feared family disputes above all else. He either quietly agreed with his wife and youngest daughter's behavior or simply closed his eyes to it. "Dad, this isn't fair," Caroline had protested, and Thomas always gave the same reply. "Caroline, families support each other. There's nothing wrong with helping your less fortunate family members since you've been successful." He loved Caroline, but his pacifism essentially amounted to silently condoning the unfair demands of her mother and sister. Caroline neatly rearranged the files on her desk with her fingertips. Her record-keeping nature wasn't just a personality trait, it was a survival strategy. Since childhood, facts about what I had, what I did, and what I paid for had always been painted over by her family's selective memory. So she began keeping records. Starting with small notebooks, it evolved into precisely organized digital and analog files. This served her well in her financial career, but the real purpose was self-defense. Caroline checked her calendar. The baby shower was in a week, an event planned by her sister Amanda and mother Judith, which would probably be more extravagant than necessary. And most of the bills would likely end up in front of her with the phrase, "because you're the big sister." Jennifer called over the intercom. "The Hopkins couple has arrived in the lobby." Caroline took a deep breath and put on a professional smile. "Please show them in, Jennifer." She stood up and adjusted the collar of her suit. No matter what difficulties she faced, Caroline Bradley never lost her composure and grace. That was both her strength and her weakness. Passing through the elegant lobby of the Windsor Hotel, Caroline headed toward Magnolia Hall, which would be the venue for Amanda's baby shower. She wore a fine pale blue dress and carried a small, elegantly wrapped present. Boarding the elevator guided by the hotel staff, Caroline checked her appearance in the mirror. Perfect, at least on the outside. As the elevator doors opened, Caroline was greeted by a luxurious reception area, decorated with pink and blue balloons. A young woman she didn't recognize stood there, checking the guest list. "Hello, I'm Caroline Bradley." The receptionist looked up, gave Caroline a once-over, and slightly frowned. "Oh yes." She marked the list and handed Caroline a place card without saying anything more. "Thank you," said Caroline, but the woman had already turned her attention to the next guest. Stepping into the venue, it was like a space straight out of a magazine. Lavish flower arrangements hanging from the ceiling, sparkling chandeliers, perfectly placed tables and chairs. Clearly an event costing tens of thousands of dollars. Caroline began looking for her seat, a 1. She moved through the venue checking table numbers. Other relatives and friends noticed her, gave her strange looks, and quickly averted their gaze. Something was off. Finally, Caroline found her seat. It was in the corner of the venue, right in front of the restroom door. It was set apart from the other tables, with seating for just one person. On the table was a small air freshener and a small place card that read, "Beware of strong odor." Caroline's body froze. Was this a mistake? As she stood there with a confused expression, her mother Judith approached. "Caroline, you finally made it." Judith kissed her daughter's cheek. "Isn't it a lovely seat? We prepared it especially for you." Caroline looked into her mother's eyes. She confirmed the malice lurking there. "In front of the bathroom? Isn't it convenient?" Judith laughed. "You always have to get up to go to the bathroom often, don't you?" Amanda approached. She was cradling her 7-month pregnant belly, dressed in a high-quality maternity dress. "You came?" She hugged Caroline. "Do you like your seat?" "Don't be shy, it's a special seat." Caroline was at a loss for words. Was this a joke or an intentional insult? Looking around, she saw relatives snickering at her. Everyone knew about this joke. "It's a very unique seat," Caroline said quietly. Without showing any emotion, she slowly took her seat. Amanda's eyes sparkled. "We really thought about it. Caro is always so serious and meticulous, we wanted to lighten the mood with a little joke." Judith added, "You're the big sister, so you understand this kind of joke, right?" Caroline smiled. It was her client-facing smile from work, a perfectly crafted expression showing no emotion at all. "Of course I understand." When she responded, her mother and sister went back to the other guests, looking satisfied. Caroline took a deep breath and observed her surroundings. All the tables had beautiful flowers and champagne glasses, but her table had no flowers and only a glass of water. As time passed, the venue filled with energy. Waiters began bringing out luxurious appetizers, and champagne was served. However, service to Caroline's table was delayed. She silently accepted the situation and took out her smartphone to make some notes. "Caro, we're taking pictures," Amanda called out. She stood in front of Caroline's special seat and posed with several friends. Caroline smiled gently, stood up, and joined the photo. As the event progressed, the main course was served. Filet mignon sprinkled with truffles, pan-seared live lobster, and glazed organic seasonal vegetables. All restaurant-quality cuisine. The same dish was placed in front of Caroline, but it was the last one. The food was no longer warm. "Caroline, aren't you eating?" "It's such a lovely meal," her mother called from the next table. "Of course, I'll enjoy it." Caroline quietly spread her napkin and picked up her fork. The atmosphere in the venue was cheerful, with laughter and conversation echoing through the hall. The gift table was piled high with expensive-looking presents. Caroline silently observed the scene. Just as dessert was being served, a waiter approached Caroline's table and placed an envelope on a small silver tray in front of her. "Miss Bradley, your payment documents." Caroline slowly opened the envelope. Inside was a bill printed with the amount of $22,000. Her expression didn't change. Amanda and her mother approached. "Caroline, you said you'd pay the full amount, right?" Amanda said. "Because we need to save money for the baby." "You're the big sister, so you can afford it, right?" Judith added. "You always say family comes first." The two waited for Caroline's reaction. Relatives around the venue were also secretly watching. Caroline slowly picked up her champagne glass. Somehow a waiter had poured champagne for her, and brought it gently to her lips. She took a sip, set down the glass, and smiled at her mother and sister. "Don't worry, I'll take care of everything." At those words, Amanda and Judith looked relieved. However, there was a different light in Caroline's eyes. Perhaps noticing this, her mother wore a slightly anxious expression. "Caroline, are you thinking about something?" Caroline just smiled. "Nothing. I'm just willing to do anything for family." She tilted her glass again and quietly observed the luxury of the venue and the happy faces around her. Caroline put the bill in her handbag and stood up. "I'm going to get some fresh air," she announced. Making sure no one was paying attention to her movements, she left the venue and walked into the quiet hallway. Standing in front of the hotel's large window, Gazing at the twilight Manhattan landscape, Caroline took out her smartphone, unlocked it with her fingerprint, and tapped a specific app. The screen displayed detailed records of her family's financial relationships that she had been keeping. She spent a few minutes reviewing the information, scrolling through several photos and documents. "Indeed, everything is ready," she whispered softly. Caroline opened another app and sent a short message. "Executing Operation Green. Please do a final check of all documents." The reply came immediately. "All preparations complete. Awaiting your signal." She took a deep breath in and out. For the past few years, she had steadily collected records of the economic exploitation and emotional manipulation by her sister and mother. She had repeatedly analyzed family patterns from childhood and consulted with lawyers. Today, the humiliating treatment at the baby shower had been the final push to solidify her resolve. Caroline checked her appearance in the mirror and fixed her hair. Her expression now shone with a confidence different from before. "It's time to end this," she told herself as she returned to the venue. Inside, the highlight event was about to begin. Amanda sat on a central sofa and began opening gifts in front of the participants gathered around her. Oh, what a lovely baby monitor. Amanda opened a lavish gift box and took out the contents. "Martha, John, thank you." One expensive gift after another was opened to cheers. A luxury stroller, designer baby clothes, a pure silver spoon set. Caroline quietly returned to her seat and observed. "Next is from Caroline," Judith announced. She handed Amanda a small envelope. "It's awfully small, Caro," her mother added with a sarcastic smile. Amanda showed an expectant expression, but when she opened the envelope, her face quickly changed to disappointment. There was only a piece of paper inside. "A precious gift, that's it?" Amanda held up the paper with a confused expression. "Is this some kind of joke?" Judith took the piece of paper and checked both sides. "Caroline, what is this all about?" Small laughter spread through the venue, and curious gazes gathered on Caroline. But she smiled without being perturbed. "The special gift is for later," she answered quietly. "This is Amanda's time now." Amanda clearly looked dissatisfied, but moved on to opening other gifts. One luxurious present after another was revealed, and the venue was again filled with cheers. Caroline quietly watched, occasionally sipping her champagne. When the gift opening was finished, dessert and coffee were served. Amanda took commemorative photos with her friends and chatted with a smile. This was the climax of the baby shower, the moment when the guest of honor shines the brightest. But Caroline had a different plan. When most participants had finished enjoying their desserts, Caroline lightly tapped her glass with a spoon, making a chiming sound. "Excuse me, may I have your attention for a moment?" Her voice was quiet but resonated throughout the venue. Participants interrupted their conversations and focused on Caroline. "Today is my sister Amanda's special day." Caroline stood up and walked to the center of the venue holding her glass. "I'm very happy to share this wonderful opportunity to celebrate a new life." Amanda and Judith wore confused expressions. This was an unscheduled speech. "Before I give my real gift, please allow me to say a few words," Caroline continued in a gentle voice, "about our family bonds." The venue fell silent. Perhaps sensing something unusual in Caroline's demeanor, relatives leaned forward to listen. "I've always believed that family means supporting each other." Caroline sent a glance to her father Thomas. He returned her gaze with an anxious expression. "Especially me, as the big sister." She slowly took out a black leather folder from her handbag. "Over the years, I've done many things for my family. And I've been careful to keep records." Judith anxiously stood up from her chair. "Caroline, this isn't the place for such a discussion." "No, Mom. This is precisely the right timing," Caroline quietly answered. "Let's share the truth here with everyone present." She opened the folder and took out neatly arranged documents. "Over the past 5 years, I've paid a total of $120,000 for family gatherings. That includes Amanda's engagement party, wedding, and today's baby shower." A small murmur spread through the venue. Caroline continued, "But what's more interesting is the amount used without my knowledge." She took out another document. "Amanda, this is my credit card statement. A $5,000 handbag purchased at Barney's in New York. It was during the day I was on a business trip to Boston." The blood drained from Amanda's face. "What are you talking about?" "And Mom," Caroline took out another document. "This is the bill for your week at a spa in Florida. $7,200, paid with my card." Judith opened her mouth but couldn't find words. Caroline continued calmly, "And most surprisingly, there's a credit line opened using my name and social security number that I didn't know about." The venue was completely silent. All eyes were on Caroline and then on Amanda and Judith. Father Thomas had turned pale, looking back and forth between his wife and daughter. "Amanda," Caroline turned to her sister, "this is my real gift to you." She took out an envelope and placed it on the table. "What's this?" Amanda took the envelope with trembling hands. It's a report of fraudulent transactions made in your name. I haven't submitted it to the police yet. Caroline's voice was quiet, but her eyes shone sharply. Because I'm the big sister, I thought I should give you all a chance to talk first. Amanda opened the envelope, read the documents inside, and her face grew even paler. Caro, this is a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Caroline smiled. Forging my signature was a misunderstanding? Shopping with my card was a misunderstanding too? Judith interrupted. Caroline, stop this right now. How dare you air family dirty laundry in front of everyone? Dirty laundry? Caroline stared at her mother, who seated me in front of the bathroom with a sign saying, "Beware of strong odor," who humiliated me in front of everyone. A small gasp was heard from the audience. Several gazes turned toward Judith and Amanda. That was just a joke, Amanda said weakly. Yes, a joke. Caroline raised her glass. And this is my joke in return. She tilted her glass, savored a sip of champagne, and slowly smiled. The total amount stolen from me already exceeds $80,000 including today's bill. Between now and noon tomorrow, choose whether to make a repayment plan or go to the police. Amanda and Judith were speechless, staring at each other. The venue fell silent as if no one could move. And then Caroline delivered her final blow. I'm sorry, Amanda. I didn't mean to ruin your baby shower, but as a sister, I thought it was my responsibility to tell the truth. She showed a smile tinged with irony. Silence dominated the venue. The shockwave of Caroline's words rippled like a wave among the participants. Judith was the first to recover. Caroline, what are you saying? Nobody stole anything, she said with a trembling voice. It's just family helping each other. Caroline calmly nodded. Then let me explain. She took out another document from the leather folder. This is an investigation report conducted by my lawyer and the bank. She spread the documents on the central table. Participants leaned forward, trying to glimpse the contents. It started 3 years ago. Caroline began her explanation matter-of-factly. Purchases I didn't remember making started appearing on my credit card. At first, they were small amounts. She took out copies of statements. When I began investigating, I noticed something. All these purchases were made at stores Amanda frequently visits. Amanda looked up. I did shop for you sometimes, but I had your permission. Really? Caroline raised an eyebrow. What about this payment at a spa in Miami? During the weekend I was at a conference in Chicago? Amanda was at a loss for words. Caroline continued. Even more serious is the loan applied for using a copy of my ID. She took out another document. According to the bank's investigation, the signature on the application wasn't mine. Expert analysis shows the handwriting matches Amanda's. Sounds of surprise rose from the venue. Amanda turned pale and covered her face with both hands. Caro, that was. And today's baby shower. Caroline looked around the venue conspicuously. The reservation fee of $1,515,000 was also paid from my card without permission. The date was February 15th, when I was on a business trip to London. Judith stepped forward. Caroline, this is a misunderstanding. We just thought you had agreed. That's a lie, Mom. Caroline's voice was cold. I have records of my text messages. I clearly responded about the baby shower costs saying, let me check my budget. Yet you went ahead and paid with my card. She took out her smartphone and displayed a screenshot on the screen. I have all the evidence. Father Thomas finally stood up. His face clearly showed disturbance and confusion. Judith, Amanda, is this true? His voice carried a harshness for the first time after years of silently condoning his wife and daughter's actions. Judith stared at her husband but couldn't answer. An aunt spoke up. Caroline, isn't this just family helping each other, as Judith says? Helping each other? Caroline laughed quietly. Then why do it behind my back? Why forge my signature? She took out the next document. This is a credit line from Maplewood Bank. The limit is $50,000. It was opened in my name, but the notification address was set to Amanda's apartment. Amanda stood up. Caro, tears welled in her eyes. We were in trouble. Rick's business failed, and we had piles of payments. So you stole my identity? Caroline questioned. You could have honestly consulted with me. We knew you would say no, Amanda cried out. You, always perfect, living according to plan. You couldn't understand our predicament. Couldn't understand? Caroline's voice finally carried emotion. Every time you've turned to me, I've helped. The Christmas party, your wedding, Dad's 60th birthday celebration. I paid for everything. How much gratitude do you think I've received for that? You're wealthy, Judith cut in. You can afford it. I'm wealthy because I've worked hard and lived prudently. Caroline stared at her mother. And what's the result? A humiliating seat in front of the bathroom with a "Beware of strong odor" sign? The venue was silent again. Several gazes were directed at the floor. Even relatives who had been defending Judith and Amanda were now silent. I could go to the police with this, Caroline said quietly. This is identity theft and constitutes fraud. Amanda, you could go to prison for this. Amanda began to tremble. Caro, please. Caroline took a deep breath. But I don't want to do that. You're my sister and I'm going to be the aunt of your baby. She took out the final document. This is my proposal. A repayment plan for a total of $87,000 you can pay in installments over 5 years. No interest. And immediate closure of all credit lines using my identity. Judith's lips trembled. That amount we can't. You have 2 choices, Caroline said calmly. Sign the repayment plan or I go to the police tomorrow. Father Thomas approached his daughter. Caroline, I didn't know. True regret showed in his eyes. I know, Dad, Caroline nodded slightly. But you also bear responsibility for turning a blind eye. Thomas bowed his head. He finally had to admit that his years of silence had made him complicit in the wrongdoing. What do you need? Amanda asked in a small voice. What can I do to be forgiven? Caroline stared at her sister. For the first time, softness returned to her eyes. Honesty and respect. I'm not here to be exploited. She raised her glass and smiled once more. $87,000. Choose whether to make a repayment plan today or go to the police tomorrow. The venue was enveloped in complete silence. Caroline quietly returned to her seat and calmly sipped from her glass. The winter sunlight of New York streamed through the large glass windows of Caroline Bradley Consulting. A plate commemorating the first anniversary of its founding gleamed at the entrance, and the office was filled with energy. Caroline rose from her desk and walked to the window. Below stretched Central Park, covered in snow. Thinking about the changes over the past year, she couldn't help but smile a little. After that day, after the baby shower, family relationships had fundamentally changed. Amanda and Judith signed the repayment plan and had to sell their townhouse to move to a more affordable apartment. Amanda's husband Rick finally focused on work and was supporting the household with steady sales. The door was knocked, and Caroline's father Thomas entered. His hair had become whiter, but there was a new, lively light in his eyes. Caroline, the meeting materials for the Caissons are ready. Thomas worked as a financial assistant at his daughter's company. After divorcing Judith, he had found a new purpose in life. Thank you, Dad. Caroline received the documents and looked up at her father with a smile. Dinner is still at 7, right? Of course. Amanda is coming too with the baby, Thomas answered. Amanda's daughter Lily, born 6 months ago, had brought new bonds to the family. Caroline had established a trust fund for her niece. However, it came with strict conditions, only for education, and Amanda and Rick had no access to the structure. I saw Amanda today, Thomas said. She said she's enjoying her accounting class. Amanda had begun studying accounting at a local community college. This was part of her reconciliation with Caroline, an attempt to correct her own economic concepts. Progress, Caroline smiled. Her cell phone rang, and Judith's name appeared on the screen. Caroline hesitated for a moment before answering. Hi, Mom. Caroline, about tomorrow's payment. Could you wait a week? Caroline looked up at the ceiling. Even after a year, her mother's basic attitude hadn't changed much. But now, clear boundaries had been drawn. No, Mom. I need you to pay according to the agreed schedule. Her voice was gentle but firm. After hanging up, Caroline returned to her desk and took out a photograph from the drawer. It was a family photo taken when Lily was born. Imperfect as they were trying to become a family again. Caroline gazed at the photo and whispered softly, I won't become like you. This was also what she had told her sister. Acknowledge mistakes, make amends, and grow. That's what being a truly responsible adult means. Outside the window, snow had begun to fall quietly. Like the beginning of a new season,